To deal with this problem, the number of packages you can load together is controlled. Their closeness to people, animals, and unexposed film is also controlled. The transport index tells the degree of control needed during transportation. The total transport index of all packages in a single vehicle must not exceed 50. Table A to this section shows rules for each transport index. It shows how close you can load Class 7, radioactive, materials to people, animals, or film. For example, you can't leave a package with a transport index of 1.1 within 2 feet of people or cargo space walls. Mixed loads. The rules require some products to be loaded separately. You cannot load them together in the same cargo space. Figure 9.9 lists some examples. The regulations, the segregation table for hazardous materials, name other materials you must keep apart. Table, figure 9.9, do not load table. Do not load, division 6.1 or 2.3, poison or poison inhalation hazard labeled material in the same vehicle with animal or human food, unless the poison package is overpacked in an approved way. Foodstuffs are anything you swallow. However, mouthwash, toothpaste, and skin creams are not foodstuff. Do not load Division 2.3, poisonous gas, Zone A, or Division 6.1, poison liquids, PG Roman numeral 1, Zone A, in the same vehicle with Division 5.1, oxidizers, Class 3, flammable liquids, Class 8, corrosive liquids, Division 5.2, organic peroxides, Division 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, explosives, Division 1.5, blasting agents, Division 2.1, flammable gases, Class 4, flammable solids. Do not load charged storage batteries in the same vehicle with Division 1.1. Do not load Class 1, detonating primers, in the same vehicle with any other explosives unless in authorized containers or packages. Do not load Division 6.1, cyanides or cyanide mixtures, in the same vehicle with acids, corrosive materials, or other acidic materials which could release hydrocyanic acid. For example, cyanides, inorganic, NOS, silver cyanide, sodium cyanide. Do not load nitric acid, Class 8, in the same vehicle with other materials unless the nitric acid is not loaded above any other material. Continuing with the text. Subsection 9.4. Test your knowledge. 1. Around which hazard classes must you never smoke? 2. Which 3 hazard classes should not be loaded into a trailer that has a heater and air conditioner unit? 3. Should the floor liner required for Division 1.1 or 1.2 materials be stainless steel? 4. At the shipper's dock, you're given a paper for 100 cartons of battery acid. You already have 100 pounds of dry silver cyanide on board. What precautions do you have to take? 5. Name a hazard class that uses transport indexes to determine the amount that can be loaded in a single vehicle. These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsection 9.4. 9.5. Bulk packaging marking, loading, and unloading. The glossary at the end of this section gives the meaning of the word bulk. Cargo tanks are bulk packaging permanently attached to a vehicle. Cargo tanks remain on the vehicle when you load and unload them. Portable tanks are bulk packaging, which are not permanently attached to a vehicle. The product is loaded or unloaded while the portable tanks are off the vehicle. Portable tanks are then put on a vehicle for transportation. There are many types of cargo tanks in use. The most common cargo tanks are MC306 for liquids and MC331 for gases. 9.5.1 Markings. You must display the identification number of the hazardous materials in portable tanks and cargo tanks and other bulk packaging, such as dump trucks. Identification numbers are in column 4 of the hazardous materials table. The rules require black 100 mm, 3.9-inch, numbers on orange panels, placards, or a white, diamond-shaped background if no placards are required. Specification cargo tanks must show retest date markings. Portable tanks must also show the lessee or owner's name. They must also display the shipping name of the contents on 2 opposing sides. The letters of the shipping name must be at least 2 inches tall on portable tanks with capacities of more than 1,000 gallons, and 1 inch tall on portable tanks with capacities of less than 1,000 gallons. The identification number must appear on each side and each end of a portable tank or other bulk packaging that hold 1,000 gallons or more, and on 2 opposing sides if the portable tank holds less than 1,000 gallons. The identification numbers must still be visible when the portable tank is on the motor vehicle. If they are not visible, you must display the identification number on both sides and ends of the motor vehicle. Intermediate bulk containers, IBCs, are bulk packages, but are not required to have the owner's name or shipping name. 9.5.2 Tank Loading. The person in charge of loading and unloading a cargo tank must be sure a qualified person is always watching. The person watching the loading or unloading must be alert, have a clear view of the cargo tank, be within 25 feet of the tank, know of the hazards of the materials involved, know the procedures to follow in an emergency, be authorized to move the cargo tank and able to do so. There are special attendance rules for cargo tanks transporting propane and anhydrous ammonia. Close all manholes and valves before moving a tank of hazardous materials, no matter how small the amount in the tank or how short the distance. Manholes and valves must be closed to prevent leaks. It is illegal to move a cargo tank with open valves or covers unless it is empty according to 49 CFR 173.29. 9.5.3 Flammable Liquids. Turn off your engine before loading or unloading any flammable liquids. Only run the engine if needed to operate a pump. Ground a cargo tank correctly before filling it through an open filling hole. Ground the tank before opening the filling hole and maintain the ground until after closing the filling hole. 9.5.4 Compressed gas. Keep liquid discharge valves on a compressed gas tank closed except when loading and unloading. Unless your engine runs a pump for product transfer, turn it off when loading or unloading. If you use the engine, turn it off after product transfer before you unhook the hose. Unhook all loading and unloading connections before coupling, uncoupling, or moving a cargo tank. Always chock trailers and semi-trailers to prevent motion when uncoupled from the power unit. Subsection 9.5 Test your knowledge. 1. What are cargo tanks? 2. How is a portable tank different from a cargo tank? 3. Your engine runs a pump used during delivery of compressed gas. Should you turn off the engine before or after unhooking hoses after delivery? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsection 9.5. 9.6 Hazardous Materials, Driving and Parking Rules. 9.6.1 Parking with Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives. Never park with Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives within 5 feet of the traveled part of the road. Except for short periods of time needed for vehicle operation necessities, e.g. fueling, do not park within 300 feet of a bridge, tunnel, or building, a place where people gather, an open fire. If you must park to do your job, do so only briefly. Don't park on private property unless the owner is aware of the danger. Someone must always watch the parked vehicle. You may let someone else watch it for you only if your vehicle is on the shipper's property, on the carrier's property, on the consignee's property. You are allowed to leave your vehicle unattended in a safe haven. A safe haven is an approved place for parking unattended vehicles loaded with explosives. Designation of authorized safe havens is usually made by local authorities. 9.6.2. Parking a placarded vehicle not transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3, Class A or B, explosives. You may park a placarded vehicle, not laden with explosives, within 5 feet of the traveled part of the road only if your work requires it. Do so only briefly. Someone must always watch the vehicle when parked on a public roadway or shoulder. Do not uncouple a trailer and leave it with hazardous materials on a public street. Do not park within 300 feet of an open fire. 9.6.3. Attending parked vehicles. The person attending a placarded vehicle must be in the vehicle, awake and not in the sleeper berth, or within 100 feet of the vehicle and have it within clear view. Be aware of the hazards of the materials being transported. Know what to do in emergencies. Be able to move the vehicle if needed. 9.6.4. No flares. You might break down and have to use stopped vehicle signals. Use reflective triangles or red electric lights. Never use burning signals, such as flares or fuses, around a tank used for Class 3 flammable liquids or Division 2.1 flammable gas whenever loaded or empty. Vehicle loaded with Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives. 9.6.5. Route restrictions. Some states and counties require permits to transport hazardous materials or wastes. They may limit the routes you can use. Local rules about routes and permits change often. It is your job as driver to find out if you need permits or must use special routes. Make sure you have all needed papers before starting. If you work for a carrier, ask your dispatcher about route restrictions or permits. If you are an independent trucker and are planning a new route, check with state agencies where you plan to travel. Some localities prohibit transportation of hazardous materials through tunnels, over bridges, or other roadways. Always check before you start. Whenever placarded, avoid heavily populated areas, crowds, tunnels, narrow streets, and alleys. Take other routes, even if inconvenient, unless there is no other way. Never drive a placarded vehicle near open fires unless you can safely pass without stopping. If transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives, you must have a written route plan and follow that plan. Carriers prepare the route plan in advance and give the driver a copy. You may plan the route yourself if you pick up the explosives at a location other than your employer's terminal. Write out the plan in advance. Keep a copy of it with you while transporting the explosives. Deliver shipments of explosives only to authorized persons or leave them in locked rooms designed for explosives storage. A carrier must choose the safest route to transport placarded radioactive materials. After choosing the route, the carrier must tell the driver about the radioactive materials and show the route plan. 9.6.6. No smoking. Do not smoke within 25 feet of a placarded cargo tank used for Class 3 flammable liquids or Division 2.1 gases. Also, do not smoke or carry a lighted cigarette, cigar, or pipe within 25 feet of any vehicle which contains Class 1 explosives, Division 2.1 flammable gases, Class 3 flammable liquids, Division 4.1 flammable solids, Division 4.2 spontaneously combustible, Class 5 oxidizers. 9.6.7. Refuel with engine off. Turn off your engine before fueling a motor vehicle containing hazardous materials. Someone must always be at the nozzle, controlling fuel flow. 9.6.8 10 BC fire extinguisher. The power unit of placarded vehicles must have a fire extinguisher with a UL rating of 10 BC or more. 9.6.9 Check tires. Make sure your tires are properly inflated. Check placarded vehicles with dual tires at the start of each trip and when you park. You must check the tires each time you stop. The only acceptable way to check tire pressure is to use a tire pressure gauge. Do not drive with a tire that is leaking or flat except to the nearest safe place to fix it. Remove any overheated tire. Place it a safe distance from your vehicle. Don't drive until you correct the cause of the overheating. Remember to follow the rules about parking and attending placarded vehicles. They apply even when checking, repairing, or replacing tires. 9.6.10 Where to keep shipping papers and emergency response information. Do not accept a hazardous material shipment without a properly prepared shipping paper. A shipping paper for hazardous materials must always be easily recognized. Other people must be able to find it quickly after a crash. Clearly distinguish hazardous materials shipping papers from others by tabbing them or keeping them on top of the stack of papers. When you are behind the wheel, keep shipping papers within your reach, with your seatbelt on, or in a pouch on the driver's door. They must be easily seen by someone entering the cab. When not behind the wheel, leave shipping papers in the driver's door pouch or on the driver's seat. Emergency response information must be kept in the same location as the shipping paper. Papers for Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives. A carrier must give each driver transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives a copy of Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, FMCSR, Part 397. The carrier must also give written instructions on what to do if delayed or in a crash. The written instructions must include the names and telephone numbers of people to contact, including carrier agents or shippers, the nature of the explosives transported, the precautions to take in emergencies such as fires, crashes, or leaks. Drivers must sign a receipt for these documents. You must be familiar with and have in your possession while driving the shipping papers, written emergency instructions, written route plan, a copy of FMCSR Part 397. 9.6.11 Equipment for chlorine. A driver transporting chlorine in cargo tanks must have an approved gas mask in the vehicle. The driver must also have an emergency kit for controlling leaks in dome cover plate fittings on the cargo tank. 9.6.12 Stop before railroad crossings. Stop before a railroad crossing if your vehicle is placarded, carries any amount of chlorine, has cargo tanks, whether loaded or empty, used for hazardous materials. You must stop 15 to 50 feet before the nearest rail. Proceed only when you are sure no train is coming. Don't shift gears while crossing the tracks. 9.7 Hazardous Materials Emergencies. 9.7.1 Emergency Response Guidebook, ERG. The Department of Transportation has a guidebook for firefighters, police, and industry workers on how to protect themselves and the public from hazardous materials. The guide is indexed by proper shipping name and hazardous materials identification number. Emergency personnel look for these things on the shipping paper. That is why it is vital that the proper shipping name, identification number, label, and placards are correct. 9.7.2 Crashes or Incidents. As a professional driver, your job at the scene of a crash or incident is to keep people away from the scene, limit the spread of material only if you can safely do so, communicate the danger of the hazardous materials to emergency response personnel, Provide emergency responders with the shipping papers and emergency response information. Follow this checklist. Check to see that your driving partner is okay. Keep shipping papers with you. Keep people far away and upwind. Warn others of the danger. Call for help. Follow your employer's instructions. 9.7.3 Fires. You might have to control minor truck fires on the road. However, unless you have the training and equipment to do so safely, don't fight hazardous materials fires. Dealing with hazardous materials fires requires special training and protective gear. When you discover a fire, call for help. You may use the fire extinguisher to keep minor truck fires from spreading to cargo before firefighters arrive. Feel trailer doors to see if they are hot before opening them. If hot, you may have a cargo fire and should not open the doors. Opening doors lets air in and may make the fire flare up. Without air, many fires only smolder until firemen arrive, doing less damage. If your cargo is already on fire, it is not safe to fight the fire. Keep the shipping papers with you to give to emergency personnel as soon as they arrive. Warn other people of the danger and keep them away. If you discover a cargo leak, identify the hazardous materials leaking by using shipping papers, labels, or package location. Do not touch any leaking material. Many people injure themselves by touching hazardous materials. Do not try to identify the material or find the source of a leak by smell. Toxic gases can destroy your sense of smell and can injure or kill you even if they don't smell. Never eat, drink, or smoke around a leak or spill. If hazardous materials are spilling from your vehicle, do not move it any more than safety requires. You may move off the road and away from places where people gather if doing so serves safety. Only move your vehicle if you can do so without danger to yourself or others. Never continue driving with hazardous materials leaking from your vehicle in order to find a phone booth, truck stop, help, or similar reason. Remember, the carrier pays for the cleanup of contaminated parking lots, roadways, and drainage ditches. The costs are enormous, so don't leave a lengthy trail of contamination. If hazardous materials are spilling from your vehicle, park it. Secure the area. Stay there. Send someone else for help. When sending someone for help, give that person a description of the emergency, your exact location and direction of travel, your name, the carrier's name, and the name of the community or city where your terminal is located, the proper shipping name, hazard class, and identification number of the hazardous materials, if you know them. This is a lot for someone to remember. It is a good idea to write it all down for the person you send for help. The emergency response team must know these things to find you and to handle the emergency. They may have to travel miles to get to you. This information will help them to bring the right equipment the first time without having to go back for it. Never move your vehicle if doing so will cause contamination or damage the vehicle. Keep upwind and away from roadside rests, truck stops, cafes, and businesses. Never try to repack leaking containers. Unless you have the training and equipment to repair leaks safely, don't try it. Call your dispatcher or supervisor for instructions and, if needed, emergency personnel. 9.7.4 Responses to specific hazards. Class 1 Explosives. If your vehicle has a breakdown or accident while carrying explosives, warn others of the danger. Keep bystanders away. Do not allow smoking or open fire near the vehicle. If there is a fire, warn everyone of the danger of explosion. Remove all explosives before separating vehicles involved in a collision. Place the explosives at least 200 feet from the vehicles and occupied buildings. Stay a safe distance away. Class 2 Compressed gases. If compressed gas is leaking from your vehicle, warn others of the danger. Only permit those involved in removing the hazard or wreckage to get close. You must notify the shipper if compressed gas is involved in any crash. Unless you are fueling machinery used in road construction or maintenance, do not transfer a flammable compressed gas from one tank to another on any public roadway. Class 3. Flammable liquids. If you are transporting a flammable liquid and have a crash or your vehicle breaks down, prevent bystanders from gathering. Warn people of the danger. Keep them from smoking. Never transport a leaking cargo tank farther than needed to reach a safe place. Get off the roadway if you can do so safely. Don't transfer flammable liquid from one vehicle to another on a public roadway except in an emergency. Class 4. Flammable solids, and Class 5. Oxidizing materials. If a flammable solid or oxidizing material spills, warn others of the fire hazard. Do not open smoldering packages of flammable solids. Remove them from the vehicle if you can safely do so. Also, remove unbroken packages if it will decrease the fire hazard. Class 6. Poisonous materials and infectious substances. It is your job to protect yourself, other people, and property from harm. Remember that many products classed as poison are also flammable. If you think a Division 2.3, poison gases, or Division 6.1, poison materials, might be flammable, take the added precautions needed for flammable liquids or gases. Do not allow smoking, open flame, or welding. Warn others of the hazards of fire, of inhaling vapors, or coming in contact with the poison. A vehicle involved in a leak of Division 2.3, poison gases, or Division 6.1, poisons, must be checked for stray poison before being used again. If a Division 6.2, infectious substances, package is damaged in handling or transportation, you should immediately contact your supervisor. Packages that appear to be damaged or show signs of leakage should not be accepted. Class 7. Radioactive materials. If radioactive material is involved in a leak or broken package, tell your dispatcher or supervisor as soon as possible. If there is a spill, or if an internal container might be damaged, do not touch or inhale the material. Do not use the vehicle until it is cleaned and checked with a survey meter. Class 8. Corrosive materials. If corrosives spill or leak during transportation, be careful to avoid further damage or injury when handling the containers. Parts of the vehicle exposed to a corrosive liquid must be thoroughly washed with water. After unloading, wash out the interior as soon as possible before reloading. If continuing to transport a leaking tank would be unsafe, get off the road. If safe to do so, contain any liquid leaking from the vehicle. Keep bystanders away from the liquid and its fumes. Do everything possible to prevent injury to yourself and to others. 9.7.5 Required notification. The National Response Center helps coordinate emergency response to chemical hazards. It is a resource to the police and firefighters. It maintains a 24-hour toll-free line listed below. You or your employer must phone when any of the following occur as a direct result of a hazardous materials incident: a person is killed, an injured person requires hospitalization, estimated property damage exceeds $50,000, the general public is evacuated for more than 1 hour. One or more major transportation arteries or facilities are closed for 1 hour or more. Fire, breakage, spillage, or suspected radioactive contamination occurs. Fire, breakage, spillage, or suspected contamination occur involving shipment of etiologic agents, bacteria, or toxins. A situation exists of such a nature, e.g., continuing danger to life exists at the scene of an incident, that, in the judgment of the carrier, should be reported. National Response Center, 800-424-8802. Persons telephoning the National Response Center should be ready to give their name and address of the carrier they work for, phone number where they can be reached, date, time, and location of incident, the extent of injuries, if any, classification, name, and quantity of hazardous materials involved if such information is available, type of incident and nature of hazardous materials involvement, and whether a continuing danger to life exists at the scene. If a reportable quantity of hazardous substance was involved, the carrier should give the name of the shipper and the quantity of the hazardous substance discharged. Be prepared to give your employer the required information as well. Carriers must make detailed written reports within 30 days of an incident. Chemtrec 800-424-9300. The Chemical Transportation Emergency Center, Chemtrec, in Washington also has a 24-hour toll-free line. Chemtrec was created to provide emergency personnel with technical information about the physical properties of hazardous materials. The National Response Center and Chemtrec are in close communication. If you call either one, they will tell the other about the problem when appropriate. Do not leave radioactive yellow Roman numeral II or yellow Roman numeral III labeled packages near people, animals, or film longer than shown in Figure 9.10. Table, Figure 9.10, Radioactive Separation Table A. Total Transport Index, none. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, none. To people or cargo compartment partitions, none. Total Transport Index, 0.1 to 1.0. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, 0 through 2 hours, 1. 2 through 4 hours, 2. 4 through 8 hours, 3. 8 through 12 hours, 4. Over 12 hours, 5. To people or cargo compartment partitions, 1. Total Transport Index, 1.1 to 5.0. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, 0 through 2 hours, 3. 2 through 4 hours, 4. 4 through 8 hours, 6. 8 through 12 hours, 8. Over 12 hours, 11. To people or cargo compartment partitions, 2. Total Transport Index, 5.1 to 10.0. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, 0 through 2 hours, 4. 2 through 4 hours, 6. 4 through 8 hours, 9. 8 through 12 hours, 11. Over 12 hours, 15. To people or cargo compartment 15. To people or cargo compartment partitions, 3. Total Transport Index, 10.1 to 20.0. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, 0 through 2 hours, 5. 2 through 4 hours, 8. 4 through 8 hours, 12. 8 through 12 hours, 16. Over 12 hours, 22. To people or cargo compartment partitions, 4. Total Transport Index, 20.1 to 30.0. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, 0 through 2 hours, 7. 2 through 4 hours, 10. 4 through 8 hours, 15. 8 through 12 hours, 20. Over 12 hours, 29. To people or cargo compartment partitions, 5. Total Transport Index, 30.1 to 40.0. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, 0 through 2 hours, 8. 2 through 4 hours, 11. 4 through 8 hours, 17. 8 through 12 hours, 22. Over 12 hours, 33. To people or cargo compartment partitions, 6. Total Transport Index, 40.1 to 50.0. Minimum distance in feet to nearest undeveloped film, 0 through 2 hours, 9. 2 through 4 hours, 12. 4 through 8 hours, 19. 8 through 12 hours, 24. over 12 hours, 36, to people or cargo compartment partitions, blank. Continuing with the text. Classes of hazardous materials. Hazardous materials are categorized into 9 major hazard classes and additional categories for consumer commodities and combustible liquids. The classes of hazardous materials are listed in Figure 9.11. Table, Figure 9.11. Hazard class definitions, Table B. Class 1. Class name, explosives. Example, ammunition, dynamite, fireworks. Class 2. Class name, gases. Example, propane, oxygen, helium. Class 3. Class name, flammable. Example, gasoline fuel, acetone. Class 4. Class name, flammable solids. Example, matches, fuses. Class 5. Class name, oxidizers. Example, ammonium nitrate, hydrogen peroxide. Class 6. Poisons. Example, pesticides, arsenic. Class 7. Class name, radioactive. Example, uranium, plutonium. Class 8. Class name, corrosives. Example, hydrochloric acid, battery acid. Class 9. Class name, miscellaneous hazardous materials. Example, formaldehyde, asbestos. Class none. Class name, ORM-D, other regulated material, domestic. Example, hairspray or charcoal. Class none. Class name, combustible liquids. Example, fuel oils, lighter fluid. Continuing with the text. Subsections 9.6 and 9.7. Test your knowledge. If your placarded trailer has dual tires, how often should you check the tires? 2. What is a safe haven? 3. How close to the traveled part of the roadway can you park with Division 1.2 or 1.3 materials? 4. How close can you park to a bridge, tunnel, or building with the same load? 5. What type of fire extinguisher must placarded vehicles carry? 6. You're hauling 100 pounds of Division 4.3, dangerous when wet, materials. Do you need to stop before a railroad highway crossing? 7. At a rest area, you discover your hazardous materials shipment slowly leaking from the vehicle. There is no phone around. What should you do? 8. What is the Emergency Response Guide, ERG? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsections 9.6 and 9.7. 9.8. Hazardous Materials Glossary. This glossary presents definitions of certain terms used in this section. A complete glossary of terms can be found in the Federal Hazardous Materials Rules, 49 CFR 171.8. You should have an up-to-date copy of these rules for your reference. Note, you will not be tested on this glossary. Section 171.8 Definitions and Abbreviations. Bulk packaging. Packaging, other than a vessel or a barge, including a transport vehicle or freight container, in which hazardous materials are loaded with no intermediate form of containment and which has 1. A maximum capacity greater than 450 liters, 119 gallons, as a receptacle for a liquid. 2. A maximum net mass greater than 400 kilograms, 882 pounds, or a maximum capacity greater than 450 liters, 119 gallons, as a receptacle for a solid. Or 3. A water capacity greater than 454 kilograms, 1,000 pounds, as a receptacle for a gas as defined in Section 173.115. Cargo tank. A bulk packaging which 1. Is a tank intended primarily for the carriage of liquids or gases and includes appurtenances, reinforcements, fittings, and closures. For tank, see 49 CFR 178.345-1 sub C, 178.337-1, or 178.338-1 as applicable. 2 is permanently attached to or forms a part of a motor vehicle, or is not permanently attached to a motor vehicle but which, by reason of its size, construction, or attachment to a motor vehicle, is loaded or unloaded without being removed from the motor vehicle. And 3 is not fabricated under a specification for cylinders, portable tanks, tank cars, or multi-unit tank car tanks. Carrier. A person engaged in the transportation of passengers or property by 1. Land or water as a common, contract, or private carrier, or 2. Civil aircraft. Consignee. The business or person to whom a shipment is delivered. Division. A subdivision of a hazard class. EPA. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. FMCSR. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. Freight container. A reusable container having a volume of 64 cubic feet or more, designed and construction to permit being lifted with its contents intact and intended primarily for containment of packages in unit form during transportation. Fuel tank. A tank other than a cargo tank used to transport flammable or combustible liquid or compressed gas for the purpose of supplying fuel for propulsion of the transport vehicle to which it is attached, or for the operation of other equipment on the transport vehicle. Gross weight or gross mass, the weight of a package plus the weight of its contents. Hazard class, the category of hazard assigned to a hazardous material under the definitional criteria of Part 173 and the provisions of the Section 172.101 table. A material may meet the defining criteria for more than one hazard class, but is assigned to only one hazard class. Hazardous materials. A substance or material which has been determined by the Secretary of Transportation to be capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, and property when transported in commerce, and which has been so designated. The term includes hazardous substances, hazardous wastes, marine pollutants, elevated temperature materials, and materials designated as hazardous in the Hazardous Materials Table of Section 172.101, and materials that meet the defining criteria for hazard classes and divisions in Section 173, Subchapter C of this chapter. Hazardous substance. A material, including its mixtures and solutions, that 1. Is listed in Appendix A to Section 172.101, 2. Is in a quantity in one package which equals or exceeds the reportable quantity, RQ, listed in Appendix A to Section 172.101, and 3. When in a mixture or solution, A. For radionuclides, conforms to paragraph 7 of Appendix A to Section 172.101. B. For other than radionuclides, is in a concentration by weight which equals or exceeds the concentration corresponding to the RQ of the material, as shown in Figure 9.12. Table, Figure 9.12, Hazardous Substance Concentrations. RQ pounds, kilograms, 5,000, 2,270. Concentration by weight, percent, 10. Parts per million, 100,000. RQ pounds, kilograms, 1,000, 454. Concentration by weight, percent, 2. Parts per million, 20,000. RQ pounds, kilograms, 100, 45.4. Concentration by weight, percent, 0.2. Parts per million, 2,000. RQ pounds, kilograms, 10, 4.54. Concentration by weight, percent, 0.02. Parts per million, 200. RQ pounds, kilograms, 1, 0.454. Concentration by weight, percent, 0.002. Parts per million, 20. Continuing with the text. This definition does not apply to petroleum products that are lubricants or fuels. See 40 CFR 300.6. Hazardous waste, for the purposes of this chapter, means any material that is subject to the hazardous waste manifest requirements of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, specified in 40 CFR Part 262. Intermediate bulk container, IBC, a rigid or flexible portable packaging other than a cylinder or portable tank, which is designed for mechanical handling. Standards for IBCs manufactured in the United States are set forth in subparts N and O, Section 178. Limited quantity, the maximum amount of a hazardous material for which there may be specific labeling or packaging exception. Marking, the descriptive name, identification number, instructions, cautions, weight, specification, or UN marks or combinations thereof required by this subchapter on outer packaging of hazardous materials. Mixture, a material composed of more than one chemical compound or element. Name of contents, the proper shipping name as specified in Section 172.101. Non-bulk packaging, a packaging which has 1. A maximum capacity of 450 liters, 119 gallons, as a receptacle for a liquid, 2. A maximum net mass less than 400 kilograms, 882 pounds, and a maximum capacity of 450 liters, 119 gallons, or less as a receptacle for a solid, or 3. A water capacity greater than 454 kilograms, 1,000 pounds, or less as a receptacle for a gas, as defined in Section 173.115. NOS, not otherwise specified. Outage or ullage, the amount by which a packaging falls short of being liquid full, usually expressed in percent by volume. Portable tank, bulk packaging, except a cylinder having a water capacity of 1,000 pounds or less, designed primarily to be loaded onto or on or temporarily attached to a transport vehicle or ship and equipped with skids, mountings, or accessories to facilitate handling of the tank by mechanical means. It does not include a cargo tank, tank car, multi-unit tank car tank, or trailer carrying 3AX, 3AAX, or 3T cylinders. Proper shipping name, the name of the hazardous material shown in Roman print, not italics, in Section 172.101. P.S.I. or PSI, pounds per square inch. P.S.I.A. or PSIA, pounds per square inch absolute. Reportable quantity, RQ, the quantity specified in Column 2 of the Appendix to Section 172.101 for any material identified in Column 1 of the Appendix. RSPA, now PHMSA, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, U.S. Department of Transportation, Washington, D.C., 20590. Shipper's certification, a statement on a shipping paper, signed by the shipper, saying he or she prepared the shipment properly according to law. For example, quote, "This is to certify that the above-named materials are properly classified, described, packaged, marked, and labeled, and are in proper condition for transportation according to the applicable regulations of the Department of Transportation." End quote. Or, quote, "I hereby declare that the contents of this consignment are fully and accurately described above by the proper shipping name and are classified, packaged, marked, and labeled or placarded, and they are in all respects in proper condition for transport by," footnote, Words may be inserted here to indicate mode of transportation, rail, aircraft, motor vehicle, vessel, continuing with the quotation, according to applicable international and national government regulations, end quote. Shipping paper, a shipping order, bill of lading, manifest, or other shipping document serving a similar purpose and containing the information required by Section 172.202, 172.203, and 172.204. Technical name, a recognized chemical name or microbiological name currently used in scientific and technical handbooks, journals, and texts. Transport vehicle, a cargo-carrying vehicle such as an automobile, van, tractor, truck, semi-trailer, tank car, or rail car used for the transportation of cargo by any mode. Each cargo-carrying body, trailer, rail car, etc., is a separate transport vehicle. UN standard packaging, a specification packaging conforming to the standards in the UN recommendations. UN, United Nations.